They're
Like
all
we're all
on right
live.
now. They're all on right now. So he does sort of control. We're live. All right.
All right. Welcome everybody to the October 2020 version of the Central School District Board of Directors meeting. I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Would you all rise for the flag salute? And Darcy, would you mind leading us?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, this is great. We have a little bit of a different format tonight. I think you should, if you're viewing from home, you should be able to see the board meeting face-to-face here at the Henry Hill Education Center. So it's nice to be in person on this end. Let's go ahead and go over the agenda and then we'll get into it.
So we have two changes to the agenda. One, we do not have a financial standing report, so that has been removed. And then we did remove our business agenda item update to the 2021 school calendar. I will probably be coming back to you for a special board meeting on October 19th when we have our PLC time to go over the calendar. We just need to make some additional follow-up and adjustments before we bring that to you for approval. So we did need to pull that for this evening. Those are the two changes.
All right, so it'll basically be primarily addressing any questions we've received from the public as a part of your update. Do we have any specific communications from the floor that we need to turn over to on the webinar at this point?
We're going to see if we had two come in for specific to our theater, so I will address that. And then the other two we've had also are in my superintendent report, so I will be able to address those, and I'll make reference to that. So, Emily, are either of them there? Okay.
Okay, yeah. Why don't we go ahead and go into the superintendent report then, and you can touch on those topics. And if we do have those participants join and they still want to make a comment, we can always go back to that.
Absolutely. And then, yep.
So actually I skipped over the association reports. Do we have association reports tonight?
I believe we do. Or just if they are online. We have, I believe our CEA report is going to be coming from Monmouth Elementary.
If you're wondering what we're doing, we're waiting. The board has a monitor up here in the room where we can see the Zoom meeting, and we're just trying to connect in with the CEA representative.
Oh, that's OSEA, but that'll work. We'll go.
We see you.
We see you. Just give us.
Can you hear me now?
You
Yeah.
can.
We sure can.
Okay, Carol was going to be my spokesperson, but she's having trouble logging on. And we are just here to tell you that we've got new officers that were installed in July. I as being president, and we have Denise Chase as vice president. Then we have Marie Hardwick, she's the treasurer. And I have Joanne Devine, she's the secretary. And I just want to put it also a little bit in there for food service department. The food service department group is celebrating with the Dairy Association of 100,000 meals served since.
Hold on, Cindy. We lost your sound for a second. Hold on, Cindy, because that's a good celebration.
I'm not sure where I'm at. Maybe I lost you guys.
Yep, we got, nope, you're there, Cindy. Go ahead. So start from that 100,000 celebration again.
So we are, I just want to say thank you to all my food service workers and to our food service director, Alex Singer, and Lisa Miller. I mean, it takes a tribe of people or a team to
And now we know what our kids are going through.
is doing, but I'm just thankful for all those hard people putting in so many hours and dedication. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Cindy. Let's see, Jared, do we have someone from CEA?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Katie Nance from Monmouth Elementary School. I teach kindergarten, and we're just going to give a little update on how things have been going this year at our school. We've got some things that are going really well. So we wanted to share about the beginning of the year conferences that we had. We had some in person, socially distanced with masks and hand sanitizer, and we had some virtually, and we had awesome attendance at those. Many teachers had 100% attendance from families at those conferences, and it was so nice to get to meet the families and the students virtually and in person, and it was just such a great way to start our year off and open those lines of communication. And I also wanted to share that our virtual classes have had such good attendance, and it's been so great to be able to communicate and collaborate with our families and the adults in the households. And I had so many teachers reach out and say they're so grateful for how the adults at home are helping students to learn, and kids are just coming to class so organized and prepared and ready to learn. And it's been a really great start to the year.
Hi everybody, I'm Micah. I teach special education at Monmouth. And I'm super excited to talk about our Pbis and how we've been able to still carry that on in the virtual world. So my awesome colleague, Katie, who just presented, she made a swim matrix, which is our Pbis slogan, and it applies to online. So she made that, which was really awesome. And then a lot of our teachers have become super creative with how to positively reinforce Pbis. One of our third grade teachers, or she teaches fourth grade now, is doing like virtual lunch with a friend. One of our first grade teachers, they've already won a pajama party and like a bring a stuffed animal party. So that's super awesome. Another thing that we've been able to continue on is do our Pbis character traits. So this is something we've done at MES, and virtually now we're using Purposeful People, which is our social emotional curriculum that we were able to get this year. And our first trait is courage. So later this week, my colleagues and I are going to be doing some home visits and dropping off awards and taking pictures. So we're super excited, and our next one is going to be respect. And we just wanted to give a shout out to our classified staff who have been doing things that they've never done before, and also to the amazing tech department that's helping not only us, but our families as well. So thanks for having us.
Okay. Okay, that actually does bring us now to the superintendent's report.
So I know that there are, we've had two community comments come in about we are in the process of putting together some theater really presentations or throughout this school year, and there have been some questions of why we would move forward with that. So I just want to address a couple pieces of that. So theater there is guidance under the Ready School Safe Learners specific to visual and performing arts. So our theater department put a proposal together to the school district and really developed a pretty thorough safety protocol for rehearsals and performances that fall under the Education Theater Association guidelines and the Oregon Department of Education guidelines for visual and performing arts. So I'm just going to highlight a couple of areas of, a lot of questions are being asked. Why are athletics being able to still go? Why are theater is it being allowed to go? And really the reason is because a lot of what we're doing is outside. It's much more restrictive as you get indoors with the spacing. Obviously the students in those spaces where it's not fresh air and being able to do that. So just to give a couple examples of why we've approved it. So rehearsals really are happening starting in September through November, and most of those rehearsals, as best they can, will be outside during after school time. Those practices will tend to start about around 3:30 and go a couple hours, 3 to 4 days a week is what they've proposed. If they do go into the stage area, because obviously when you're doing theater, you tend to speak louder, and there could be more really wanting them well, when they're in their settings, they're going to be wearing masks, but even beyond that, they're going to be 10 to 12 feet apart if they're even on the stage. So even further distance than what we are required to, which is the 6 feet, over 6 feet. So trying to do that. When they are in there, they will be in a block. So they'll mark off their blocks while they will practice. Again, they'll have to wear a mask. They've also talked about getting face shields as well to be able to just make sure that we're being as safe as possible. This also includes, they're going to be doing some online types of rehearsals. So really working in ensembles that way in a virtual setting. Like I said, they're investing in face shields for if and when they go inside. Again, with the weather being good, that's the goal, is to be able to keep them outside as much as possible. They each have their own scripts, so we're not doing any sharing at all in regards to that. And like I said, the assignment of their square where they would be 10 feet apart if they were on stage in really small groups. They will, as we do with athletics, as they come in to practice, they'll get asked the questions about their health. Have they had any signs? And we'll continue to abide by that, because that's the guidance that's set forth. And like I said, some of those rehearsals will be virtually. So those are really some of the main topics of why we are allowing it. We are very clear with everyone, both on the athletic side and on our theater and visual arts side, of the safety and security of our students. Again, this is allowed by OSAA and the Oregon Department of Education. Our goal is we're trying to get to other in-person or limited in-person, which I'm going to talk about a little bit further here, but wanted to address two of the community comments that came to us today specific to visual and theater arts. So that's the first piece. So I guess I'll pause. Any questions from the board in regards to that or other comments? Okay. So before I do go into any other comments, we do have two others and a few updates. I do also want to recognize that today is actually World Teacher Day. And so I just want to take a moment to commemorate on October 5th. That's when the date usually happened. It commemorates the anniversary of the adoption of the 1966 International Labor Organization and United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization that sets forth the rights and responsibilities of teachers and standards for their initial preparation and further education, recruitment, employment, and teaching and learning conditions. So again, I just think it's a good day when we have them on a board meeting to recognize that. So I just want to thank all of our teaching staff who continues to learn and grow and stretch really to support our students, each other, our families, and our great community as we go through the year. And they are working extremely hard and doing amazing things. So thank you for all of your dedication to our students and our community. So I'm going to do really the two other community comments that we received. One was concerns about the Wi-Fi and the inequity and some of the issues that we are dealing with within our community. So let me start by, it has been a difficult, and we are continuing to try and solve those Wi-Fi issues within our community. So a couple things that we are working through. We continue to partner with the cities and MyNet for a grant to supply internet to homes for free really through December. So we've been working and reaching out to families. We have a total of 46 families that have applied so far for the grant, and we continue to contact families. We've identified who don't have internet access or may have difficulty with some internet access to see if we can get internet to their homes. Thus far, for the data, we have 4 families that cannot receive access as they reside outside MyNet's area of service. 2 families have decided to decline the program once they had information and conversation. 2 families MyNet hasn't heard back from yet. We have 20 families scheduled for installation or in the process of being scheduled for installation. And we have 18 families that have had installments and are receiving services. So we're continuing, we still are following up with families, trying to reach everyone to get those that have potential access to MyNet, those services, again, at least through December. And then we are continuing to find other ways that how we might be able to continue that after that grant runs out. The other piece that we do have, or we're working through, is the state finalized a Verizon contract, so through the procurement process. So we are in the midst of negotiating a contract to get Wi-Fi unlimited hotspots for $15 a month. So we know that that is one of the services that is out in our community that actually does fairly well. So we are trying to get those as well. We are still working through, we have a handful of our Khajiits. We put those were the original hotspots that we had for at least last year. We have put several of them around town. We are trying to get those as well to families to make sure that we are getting as everybody that we can. Like I've shared with you before in our Friday reports, we have about, at this point, about 100 and I'm going to say almost 60 families that either have no Wi-Fi or have intermittent Wi-Fi that we're having to continue to work through. So please know that I am working in many different avenues with the state, with these contracts and finding or being able to get Wi-Fi so everybody does have access to get online while we are in the virtual learning space. So I'll just pause. Any questions about Wi-Fi?
So you said there's 2 families that have declined. So
I don't know the details of why they declined.
But is there an application process? Are there questions?
So the information is originally from last spring. We did some we've been doing some follow-up just to confirm. Some people have received services and have no problems now. Others, we actually just get an application because it allows me to release their information to MyNet. And so it's really just address, make sure we have current information. They sign off that says Central School District, you can share that information with MyNet. So it's not really an application. It's, we're getting this to you, please complete it. We'll get it to MyNet to get your services set up.
Because I'm just wondering why a family would decline after they made application. I'm just wondering what kind of questions are on the application that may cause someone to decline, if maybe we should look at that.
We've had that, part of that, because the grant is tied to, so there is a question on there about, do you qualify for free and reduced lunch? Again, that's only for us on the grant side of it. That information outside of the central school district and really to MyNet are the only people that have that information. So we were very diligent in trying not to deter people from really, it's not even an application. If you don't have service, we're trying to get you this piece of paper to allow us to share so we can get MyNet out to see if they can access, or your house, place, apartment where you dwell can get internet.
Okay, well, it just seems like it seems like after making application and then declining, and it's just two people, I'm just wondering if somebody could reach out and is there something, are there other supports they need or did they just figure it out? I just don't want to leave them hanging just because they said no.
I will follow up with MyNet to get the addresses so we can backtrack.
And you said this is only through December?
Correct. The grant's through December. So Director Kuntz and I are trying to figure out other avenues where we may be able to get additional funds that would help cover some of this through the rest of the school year. There are lots of people that are interested in donating. We're trying to figure out what's the best pathway of how and who to donate to then in return would keep those services up with MyNet. So that has been a little bit more of we're trying to work those pieces out and what's the easiest route to do that. Not always an easy route to do that.
Right. But basically, assuming that nothing else happens there, if I'm in one of these positions, I'll get my internet installed and I'll get to use it for 3 months. And then I'll either get a bill, which I'll decide not to pay, or they'll come shut it off.
Right. And that's partly why we're trying to figure out other grants. I don't know that this grant will be extended. I do believe though that we're trying to figure out those avenues to where we could get resources and continue to pay those bills so students and families have access. This is probably the most difficult part of my job right now is trying to build this infrastructure within our community. So we continue to work at it, and we'll
Are the cities being helpful?
Yeah, the cities have been very, very helpful. Both of them have been a part and really took the lead on applying for this, and again, in partnership with us as well as Western Oregon to get some of the benefits of this. We're really trying to get to 100 families. We're about halfway there. Again, we're continuing to make phone calls and reach out. But again, I'm with you, Don. We're trying to continue to find ways of how do we extend that? What does that look like as we move forward?
About the time we get everything figured out, their internet will go away.
Since we're not running the buses, could they divert some money that from fuel savings to this grant program to keep it?
Yeah, we're looking at all of those avenues of, can you give us an idea of potentially what the costs are? Busing is reimbursement. So if we don't run them, we don't get reimbursed. That's really where some of the, 70% of our reimbursement from buses comes from just the miles and the number of trips that we do. So that money really, we don't have right now. If we're not running buses, we're not getting that reimbursement. So, but we are looking at, again, this is a topic of our leadership conversation of how we continue to look at how after December can we continue internet if we are still in this situation of distance learning.
Broader look at it, is MyNet looking at anything to increase their incoming capacity or not?
I have not asked that question. I can follow up with them. I think them coming to the table is a good step, and I'm very appreciative of what they're doing.
They still have to survive somehow, and if they don't survive, then none of this matters.
Right. Agree. I mean, it really is a unique space that we're in right now, and being able to get, and really it's, is that if you go outside the city limits, both ends of it, you know, I think that that's where we're trying to figure out, will Verizon work? If Verizon doesn't work, what are our other options? Whether from a state procurement or just other avenues that we potentially could have access to. We are hearing that there is another company called the Lyrica who potentially is in a conversation with Polk County of a potential grant. But again, I don't know when then the towers will be built. So we're hearing that's more for the rural parts of Polk County, which I'm, again, very appreciative to the Polk County commissioners and who is ever involved in that, because that's going to be good in the long run for our community. But, you know, I don't know when, for example, those towers, they just don't go up that easy. And I'm sure that there's lots of different moving parts to that. So,
And is, I don't know, does Charter still do cable here or not? Do cable internet?
say that one more time, Don.
Does Charter or Spectrum or whatever it's called?
Yeah, they both are options in town.
And have they taken any steps to answer any of the demand for?
No, really the two that have stepped, I mean, again, I think everybody's trying to work with school districts. But right now, again, the grant we have with MyNet, the Verizon procurement, and then we, you know, T-Mobile has just released, many of people have seen probably the commercials about getting Wi-Fi to school districts or to schools to be able to do that. So that's another avenue we're gonna start to go down. I know that at times T-Mobile has not been the greatest service out here. So again, I think that's just some of the pieces that what's going to work for our, you know, for the rural, that's right now, especially as you go outside. I mean, I know I've had even conversations with Director Kirk and where she lives, and some of the disconnect or the inconsistency maybe is more, and you're really not that far out of town. So again, if you go even then more west as you get into the hills, that's where we have some of our concerns, because we do have a fair amount of families in those areas.
So how are you getting your internet out there? Oh, you are.
which again is the potential contract that's coming in with Polk County.
We're not. There's one tower that we bumped off.
Right.
You have two laptops going in one house.
Right.
You're not getting anywhere.
I mean, it's definitely a bigger infrastructure conversation. I mean, it's clear. I mean, it's clear that we will continue to partner and try and figure out that. And we, as a superintendent, we're pushing, because we've had a couple conversations as superintendents across the state with the broadband companies of how this needs to be better in rural areas.
It's got national focus, so it would seem like anybody who's supplying internet should be interested in getting involved in whether it's grant programs or, you know, federal funding or whatever. It's not going to fix everything, but we should at least be aware of what's out there.
So we are continuing to work through those. And, you know, people are asking, what are you doing for the students that can't get it? We're following up in phone calls. We're following up with packets to them. Again, it's still not the same, but that is taking place with teachers to reach out. Like I said, I have started to push a little bit to the state to say, can we maybe think about limited in-person access? Not just, you know, we potentially want to do limited in-person instruction, but I need students to have access to Wi-Fi. And I think we could build it with the protocols that we have in place in a very safe way. We could have Wi-Fi in the Ash Creek Annex. We have the ability to have Wi-Fi in large spaces like libraries and cafeterias. So we're working and or I'm pushing as best I can to say, can you please think about this, of looking at some next steps of what might be an option from a limited in-person, since right now the metrics are pretty significant for our county, which I'll talk about here in a.
And then when we transport those kids, or they have to
Yeah, that's part of the conversation that we're already having with transportation. So actually, I have already given transportation 160 families that really don't have Wi-Fi. Again, some have received service, but there's still concerns of the potential intermittent parts of that. So they are starting to work through what that might look like from a transportation. So then, yes, we would then move forward to being able to get some reimbursement for those as well.
So without overcommitting, I'll just say that Rosanna at the high school is working with Joyce and the Gate to do something similar. We're talking more about just providing quiet homework time from like 1:30 until 3 or something like that. But that could certainly also be used somewhat for kids that don't have internet, because we've got good Wi-Fi there.
Yeah, and that's why I have asked, because I do think we talked early on when we were doing the planning about learning hubs. And again, I think that we have some really great spaces and some really good partners that if we could get some sort of limited in-person access where I could put desks where kids could have solid internet connection and they could be engaged in their classes throughout the day. That's my push right now to the Oregon Department of Education. And I got a good response back that they're continuing to look at different ways and thanked me for sharing that potential, another avenue to do it in a safe way if we could meet the safety protocols as well as the disinfectant protocols. And then if we were to have any type of outbreak, that we have a response ready, which we do and has been approved through our blueprint. So I can't, part of the question is as I've shared with you, COVID's not covered by insurance. So that's partly where why my hesitation is until if that guidance were to come out to help us, I think that we could at least move in that direction to be able to give kids at least access and have reliable internet consistently.
Seems like we're going to need to do that at some point, because the sense I have is that there not only are some kids just not being able to access it, but there's a fairly large percentage of students that are probably just not very engaged, and some degree of being in person is going to be so important.
Yeah.
The sooner the better.
Right.
So if there's anything we can do to help apply pressure to ODE,
Yeah.
a letter or something.
Yeah.
You obviously have reached out to Colt, but
Yeah, and
let's keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that could be good. And like I said, they're in those conversations. That we had an update today, and we know that they're continuing to look at the metrics. And it was interesting today. And again, just because I'm going to go into the metrics piece, we are one of the lowest states across the country for metrics, which is really a positive thing. I think that we're also like that because of some of the things that we have done to help reduce those just the amount of exposure and what we're continuing to do. Again, I feel very thankful for our staff because again, we've had graduation this past spring, no incidents. We had one scare potentially with a group of students that were doing some of the filming, but that gave us our opportunity to work through our protocol of what happens should there potentially be an exposure. We've had great success with our summer school program where we had about 200 kids in and out. Again, those were small groups, no bigger than 10. Again, being successful with athletics. And so again, we feel we have good protocols. I'm hoping that we can potentially get some next steps with the, governor and the OHA and ODE of, the limited in-person instruction is great. And we're trying to get to that as well. But I also think if they could look at limited in-person access, we can be very safe and thoughtful and have good supervision of students, and then having them be in a really good space to, have some connection, but then also meet all safety and security types of measures for their health. Which takes me to our metrics. So I'm going to ask if we could put up for the community the metrics. So what you are seeing up here is just really the outline of what we are from a metric standpoint. And this was one of the community questions that was brought in of how are we making decisions about when we can go back to school? And so I just want to go through with the community one more time of where we are and what we really are required to follow. So we have metrics. So if you look at this screen on the left, upper left blue color table shows the case rate metrics for when Central School District can move in and out of in-person instruction. And you're going to see up there what the state is, what regionally is, and then what Central School District is. You'll also see Polk County, or excuse me, not Polk County, you'll also see Marion County in there. Because over 10% of our staff comes from Marion County, we have about 18% of our staff that is actually travels from Marion County. We have to put that up as part of our metric. Because that's a significant amount of staff coming from a different community. So that's one of the key things that we have to look at. So the third column on that blue is the Polk County metric, which would be, if we're in the green, that means we're having less than 10 cases per 100,000. Going into the yellow is 20 cases per 100,000. And then red is we're over 30 per 100,000. So as you look down, so that's, let me do the top part. So that's the left side is the actual rates, case rate metrics. On the upper right tan colored table shows the positive rate per test metric. And again, this is for when we can move in and out of in-person instruction. The first tan column is the state and county positive rate. And again, we have to do this in 3 weeks. So both of these, whether it be the positivity test or the case rate, we have to be under the 10 per 100,000 for case rates and under 5% for both state and county test positivity. You can see on the lower left, that's the table with the blue headings. You can see our current regional, Polk County and Marion County case rate metrics. We have been tracking this since really the last week of July, all through August, and really those first 3 weeks, excuse me, all of the weeks. I'm sorry, we don't have the most current up to date. Is it up there? Oh, that is the newest one. Perfect. They did release finally. So they released late Monday. So you can see I think it was 3 weeks ago, we were in the yellow, but the last 2 weeks, again, we have been up into the red above the 30 per 100,000. So we do not at this moment meet that criteria to even come back into school. If you go to the the right side with the tan headings, again, moving from left to right, you see the current state. And let me pause there for a second. The state rate for September, we are actually not being held accountable to that right now, partly because of the fires. So they have suspended that as part of the criteria to meet, which again, it's still in the yellow. Then you see the regional, which is the second to left, Polk County, which again, we're finally in the green. But then I have to take into consideration Marion County, which is still in the yellow and the red. So per case rate, I mean, positive wise, we're moving in that direction. But really from the 100, being under 10 cases per 100,000, we are still not there, which is one of our greatest concerns we're having to work through.
There is Polk and Marion together, right?
Correct.
So.
And I believe Lynn, I'm sorry, I'm still learning. I know our county and Marion because the next Lynn is Corvallis, Lynn Benton? Benton. I believe Benton's tied in with us as well. For regional decision making.
So I guess I was just trying to clarify if the region is in the yellow for 3 weeks in a row, does that allow us to move?
It allows us to start potentially building into in person.
Okay.
It
so-
doesn't really, we cannot move into in-person until that really hits green 3 weeks in a row.
Right, right. But we can look at the regional numbers and not just look at the Polk County numbers. So if I look at the
No,
regional,
but regional is part of that, but by the guidance, it is specifically our county metrics and the state positivity test rate. So those are the number one decision makers of
Okay, that's
how
what-
we
that's-
can get back into school.
that's what I was clarifying. 'Cause
Yeah.
I've been looking at the Polk County column and thinking that it was hopeless. And then I was thinking, well, maybe if we're looking at it as a region, then we can make decisions. But got it.
Yeah. So again, we're trying to continue to build into the limited in person. Again, we got some guidance today that it sounds like one of the key metrics is that our staff and our students cannot have any positive tests for 14 days in a row. It sounds like they are starting to get a good handle on really how that measures. So we'll make a phone call to our Polk County Health Department tomorrow just to continue those conversations. Because again, that's one of the other big steps for us to do the limited in-person access. So again, we're not to the point where I could say we can start transitioning back to in person. Again, we're trying to see if there's other options and a little bit of push to do maybe a little bit of limited or opportunities that the state might think about to what we might be able to do to get students in. So that is really how myself and my staff are making the decisions off of those metrics. So we continue to watch them. We're monitoring them every week. But right now they are not moving in the positive direction. And I want to be clear. I know that this is really frustrating at times for the community. I am getting responses from the community of, please, Jen, keep the schools closed, as much as I'm getting responses to, Jen, can we please move forward with limited in person? I am trying to build the best of both worlds. The guidance allows me to do limited, but I don't have the metrics completely there yet to be able to say we can do that safely. Once I do, or once we have the ability potentially, because I am pushing for the access piece, because we do have some fairly large spaces that I think we could do it safely to be able to at least get kids in and sitting like this. I mean, we have done our board meetings in a safe way now. What's this, our third month in a row? Second month?
Everybody's third. Some of us.
Yeah, it's a third meeting. But yeah.
So again, in room, we're all 6 feet apart. We're all wearing our masks. We've had nobody, knock on wood, sorry, I shouldn't say it, but again, I think that we're being safe. And so I think that those types of habits, which we would work with students on, I think if we can get that lenience a little bit. So I may draft a letter and maybe look at having you all sign it and get it off to the state and the governor if it's worth the push to see if we can maybe help on that. Another avenue of limited in person.
Or we actually are thinking we're ready to go back and bring some kids in. Then we have the nobody for 14 days thing that we have to deal with.
Right, and I'll find out. I mean, again, it sounds like there's been some really good progress made on that based on our conversations with the Oregon Department of Education today. So I'll be doing some follow up with that tomorrow.
Because it
With our
looks
health.
like we bring 3,000 kids back into school buildings in the safest way that we know how. And if one of them tests positive, we shut the schools back down, right?
Yes and no. I mean, I think that's part of, I think that it's not as, from what I'm hearing, it could be just a classroom gets shut down. It depends on the contact tracing and how much outreach that class may go. If we had, again, we're hearing about the super spreader approach, right? So again, if we were to have 2 classes where we had an outbreak, then yeah, Don, there's a potential that we would need to shut the school down, but that's really where we work with the health department on what that might look like.
Which brings me back to, it seems like our best energy is put into making distance learning work right now, because we could put a whole bunch of time and effort into trying to get the kids back into the buildings, and then 2 weeks later, we're sending them all back home.
Well, and both kids and staff. I mean, as much as I am worried about students getting this, I also know that if I have 3 or 4 staff go down in a building, that's going to be a difficult piece to fill. I mean, we are training subs and trying to move in that direction. So we have, I mean, we've got right now, we're in the midst of trying to get 20 solid subs trained in our platforms so that they feel comfortable. But that's, again, still a work in progress. And so I worry as much about our staff and having an outbreak in the adults as I am worried about our students. So it's both, and just trying to do it in the safest way we can.
And I guess one other point that I would make is in looking at limited in-person stuff, one of the things that we've learned in our summer experiment at the gate, and I'm sure you did with summer school as well, now that I think about it, but trying to teach kids to wear masks all the time and to stay distance and follow the rules. It's like you need a teacher plus 3 additional staff to just be policemen.
Yeah, and that's part of what our thought process would be, is if we were to have these bigger spaces, again, where it'd be a space where they would have, you know, opportunity to have tablet, earphones, and then adults, probably a fair amount of them, just monitoring and making sure that we're being safe. So that's been a little bit of our conversations with our building principals about, okay, what might this look like if we could maybe get the state to think about this as another avenue of limited in person, right? So you ask the question and you hope that maybe it'll work its way to the powers that be, that maybe that, again, I think we could do it. We've had some success, and I think I have thoughtful principals, I have thoughtful district staff that, you know, I think we could build this. And so that's really, you know, some of the pushing that we're doing, and I think could be the first good avenue of having people in our buildings, and even with our partners, because I think our partners would be willing to work with us if we had those options. Again, that's a work in progress also. Any other questions or concerns about the metrics? Okay. The next piece I just want to talk through is our K-12 or fuel. We've actually called it K-12 now. We've dropped, it's fuel is the program, but the company that we are working with is K-12. So we, as I've shared with you, we are about 93-95% of the integration with K-12 is really completed. However, one of the last parts of the integration, specifically course integration and student roster issues that we are having take place, have been at the high school. We have both our central school district integration team, and I will tell you, our staff has been working, I can't even describe the hours that they have been working to try and get this integration to flow from our student information system into other information systems to be able to build this platform. So both our school district and the K-12 integration teams worked again over this weekend. The entire weekend, we kept checking in to see if the final integration could be completed today. With that, last Friday, Director Heilman and I shared with the Vice President of K-12 Learning Solutions that if we didn't have full integration of the system and functioning as of today, that we would be pulling the K-12 implementation at the high school, because we need to get going. This is credits, this is graduation. And let me be clear, our teachers have been doing some great work, social emotional work. They've been going over previous standards from last year and getting kids ready, which is a lot of what our process is to begin the beginning of the school year. With that though, I want to be clear that integration of these types of systems at the high school with hundreds of classes is complicated. And a project like this, normally just for a high school, like I said, and I've shared with you all before, probably would take 6 to 9 months, because we would want to be, where do we want to be? And then we would back map from there. Because we've been trying to build this literally in 2 months, which we were very close, but still there were some big pieces that were missing. We really have not been successful with that mapping, and we have spent weeks and hours to try and get the high school. Again, we just keep running into errors, mapping errors, integration errors, and trying to figure those out. So because we have not been successful really for the past 2 weeks in getting those errors really cleaned up and fixed, that we are in the point of needing to make a shift in the best interest of our students and our families at the high school. So with that, the high school will be moving to the Google platform. I think one of the positives of that is many of the classes, when we are normally in person, I call it the bricks and mortar, the old way that we've been doing learning. A lot of our high school staff were using the Google platform for their standards, their teaching and learning. And again, that was used before the pandemic started. So they are in the midst of, there was a conversation that was shared today. Again, we were hoping that this morning, we thought we were close. We had a meeting while we started conversations. The last conversation was at 9 o'clock last night. The first conversation was at 6 a.m. this morning, another conversation at 11, and then another one at 1:30. And there's too many gaps at the high school. So we're going to move to the Google platform. With that, we'll work with Principal Sermignon to identify other supports needed for the shift to the Google platform. It could be, we're going to get textbooks out to kids. So we'll do as we've done with Chromebooks to do, again, that's one of the potential things that we're going to be looking at and working with her to make sure that, the high school gets what they need to get kids going and earning their credits, which again, I have great trust that we will move in that direction. It's just disappointing that we weren't able to get the integration done. So we are now working through some of the last issues on the K-8. We do have elementary majority up and going. The high school is in the process of moving into that direction. So through this week, and I'm sorry. Yep, that's what I apologize. Middle school. Thank you. Thank you for that. Middle school, that integration and those final pieces will be happening this week and as we head into next week. Integration of systems is hard, and like I've shared with you, the last 2 to 3% of these unique errors that come up, and then you have to backtrack them. Sometimes are mazes, and we're having to work through a couple of them right now. One at one of the elementaries and a couple. We're trying to take, they have a learning platform that, is semester driven. And, there are differences between online learning and our normal, the day-to-day. So things like kids moving from a building to another building. We've had a couple of those incidents. That system really isn't built for that. You just come in as a student and you stay in there. When you have different nuances, that's some of the key pieces. That's one example that we're just having to work through some of those unique situations. So, K-12 has been very gracious. I think that we are as I shared with her today, we're going to need to redo our contract. They also know that, they haven't been able to come through in the last couple of weeks. So I think that there will also be some changes financially in that as well. So I am thankful for them. I think in the long run, this could be a good platform to use in the future. As I've shared with you all, I don't think that this will go away. Even when we get back into school, I know some students are going to really flourish in this environment. So we're going to need to take that into consideration and what our models look like in the future. So again, it's not perfect. I think we're going to learn a lot. But again, as you heard two of our teachers at Monmouth share, we have kids engaged, and we're moving in that direction in the learning and growing, and continue to identify issues and have really transparent conversations. Like I said, Julie and I will still meet with the vice president. We meet every day at 4 just to continue to build together, because I do think it is something that we're going to have in the future. So questions about the K-12 platform?
couple of questions. Will we have a refund?
So, yeah, I will bring back probably, I'm going to assume we're working on the addendum to the contract right now.
Okay.
I think that there will be major changes financially. And so we'll bring that to the board for approval.
Okay. And my other question is, the high school teachers, how are they dealing with this news?
They again, here's what I'll tell you. We have a great leadership team and a great staff that are working together. I'm not going to say it's not been hard conversations. We really thought we were close today. Donna even had a couple conversations with our union president to say, what are you seeing on your end? What versus what she was seeing on her end? I think it's hard, but there's been some conversations of this. If this doesn't work, what might be our avenue? I think there's been some transparency between Donna and her department heads, which is great. So again, we've been really having this conversation collectively together, just of where we need to go in the best interest of our students. So I think it's going to be some heavy lifting. I'm sure that we'll have to, do a few things, but potentially we're going to have money back to be able to use it in those ways to make sure our students and our staff are supported moving forward at the high school. I've great, I mean this, the leadership team there with their department heads and some of their conversations and what Principal Servagna has shared with me. I think that we have moved and continue to move in a really positive direction. Again, not going to say it's perfect, but I think the transparency and those hard conversations we're having, whether it ends up in a positive or this is the avenue that we have to go.
And we're giving staff some time.
We're gonna yes, yep. So we're gonna be working through that to give them some time. Really, this Friday is an off day, so we've talked about potentially giving them some additional time if they wanted to come in on Friday and do that. We're looking at a couple different days where we could potentially, like Friday is a B day in their calendar. So that means the B day is one short. So do we use an A day to do some in-service so they have a little bit more time? So again, Principal Servagna and I are still having those conversations on what the needs might be moving forward.
So basically, this puts the high school sort of back to the model that we started trying to use in the spring, right?
Yeah, and I think but they have, I think it's different than what we did in the spring. I think that they're, yes. And they've been using it. A lot of the departments did use Google platform for the work anyways, even though that they were in class, but.
I guess the only concern I would voice comes from concerns that were voiced in the spring at the high school level, and that was that there was a wide range of quality of education between people that had a handle on how to use the tools and people that didn't yet. And so I would hope that we can invest the money and time and resources to make sure that teachers that might be struggling with using the platform have all the help they need to make sure that our kids aren't suffering for that.
And actually that you say that, so that they actually have what I am so impressed about even since last spring, and is hands down, every building has just done a phenomenal job of this, is the collaboration amongst staff. So I believe I'm not sure it's every day, but at the high school, several times during the week, they have tech time. So there are a handful of teachers that have been willing to, get online and just walk people through, here's a new trick of the trade. There's at times all email that goes out to the entire district for, hey, I just found this trick in this platform. So you're seeing a lot of collaboration. I think that we're going to continue to work through that. And where we may need additional support. But I definitely think we learned a lot last spring of what to do and what not to do. And I think we've, you just made some good approaches this year.
Right. It's just, we were going to get K-12 for a reason, which was to make it easier on everybody and take something that was designed to do what we needed to have done. And now we're getting rid of that, which I agree with that decision, but we shouldn't be naive and look at, well, we'll just go to Google Classroom and everything will be okay,
Right.
because we just sucked a bunch of resource out of the room, and we need to replace that somehow in order to be able to give out a good education.
And the implementation of a new curriculum is hard. I mean, just even us learning K-12, which again, I think we're making some good strides, but there are pieces of it that are extremely difficult that we're having continued conversations with K-12. I think K-12 understands as much as we understand that we are going to need something like this for 20 to 30% of our students. I'm not naive to that. I think we are going to see a lot of kids flourish and then figure out how do we support that K through 12 in this environment. I've shared with you all, I have a personal tie to this. My nephew since 7th grade has been in this type. It was the best way he could learn. And so I think we have to figure out in our systems how do we do this and support kids. But there are some nuances that we're also learning with all of our staff, both our classified and our licensed staff, on things that we will probably need to continue to have conversations with K-12 and as we work through implementation. But yeah, Don, you're right on. We will continue to have those conversations and make sure that we are supporting and that students are meeting standard, working towards their credits.
And I guess the positive side of it is that teachers get to work with textbooks that they've been working with before.
Yeah.
So there is that familiarity, but the other side of it, we really need to make sure we shore up. And don't read me wrong, I wasn't at all assessing the effort in the spring.
We did some really good things. Yeah, we did some really good things, and we learned a lot of I think helped us be in a better place as we started this fall.
We just have to take that learning and apply it.
Absolutely.
So you'd mentioned, well, I think in our original agenda, we were going to talk about the calendar. So could you maybe just touch on the implications of this on our, I guess, high schole timing?
So really, if you looked at originally when we were going to start school, which would have been on September 2nd, we're really the semester and how it laid out tends to be a little bit heavier first semester, but because we started 2 weeks later, we want to shift. Potentially what we're looking at is shifting the high school, and I'm only saying high school, not the rest of our K-8, but shifting the high school to their semester ending later in February. However, we're having to check some things. There's some things tied to students that potentially are going to college that we just want to make sure everything's aligned. And so really that potentially would be moving to the what looks like the end of the first semester would move from February, I believe it's 7th now, to the 17th because of, again, we pushed back from the start of what we originally had was going to be the 8th, which we moved then to the really the 17th. So that's, again, just that will equal out the semesters, give the staff a little bit more time to really make sure that our students are meeting standards and they have the ability to reach the credits that they need to graduate.
The way this year is going, I'm sure we'll have a few snow days between now and.
We were just talking about snow days.
Or an earthquake.
We haven't had one of those.
Again, what I'm very appreciative of, as a superintendent, as I sit in conversations with both of our unions, because we're still working through things as I listen and have on Tuesdays and Thursdays conversations with our administrative team, our administrative managers team. A, everybody's advocating for students. B, we are having to make very difficult decisions in unique times, and we'll have to continue. I know that we're not doing everything perfect. We are putting our best foot forward in the best interest of our students, and sometimes we're meeting what families need, and sometimes we're not. I've received several emails from families who, are working from home, and this is still too much for them, and that they love our school district, but they have to go in a different direction. I understand that. I'm not going to hold that against our community, because I think that everyone's in some very difficult situations right now, and we're trying to make everyone's trying to make the best decisions for their families, their, you know, what I say, that whatever their community might look like. So just to add to that, we give you an enrollment update tied to that. So our average, I've told you last year, was about 3165 was our average. Our current enrollment as of last Friday, I did not pull it today, was 3177. So we're up a little bit of our average last year, and we'll fluctuate up and down a little bit. Since March of last year, so far, we've had a total of 70 students that's transferred out to some other type of online school. So only 70. That threshold of 3% or more is about 95 students. So we're still underneath that. But again, I'm not the superintendent that's going to hold people to the school district. I think if people want to be here, I want them here. I think families are having to make really difficult decisions, and I'm going to support them and you know, support what they need to. That may not go well from a financial end, but that's not the point of this right now. This is about allowing families to find the best situation that they can in this very unique year. So families, hang in with us. If you have to make those choices, we understand. We hope that after we get through this, we can get you back in. But like I said, this has been a pretty tough, challenging time still for everybody as we work through this.
Do you have any thoughts about surveying the community at some point in the next month or 2 months?
Yeah, so we've had the last 2 weeks, we've had really our community committee come back together to just do some follow-up. We wanted to gather some data from them of what were some of the positives from orientation, what are we doing well, and then what are we struggling with. And so we're in the midst right now of trying to put together really a user hotline to just be able to support families with pretty much any question that they might have. Internet, K-12, you know, Google platforms. So myself, Director Heilman, 2 of her staff members, we were on a 3-hour Zoom meeting today trying to figure out the ins and outs of how do we make that work. How do we make that work from 7 a.m. to 9 o'clock? Because we believe that from about 5 to 9, we may have families that's the best time for them to be able to reach out to us. So we're working on that right now. We believe we'll have what I'm going to say a first draft of that out, we hope, and built sometime this week to start that process of just another, again, not tech support, because tech support specific for I'm having a difficulty signing on but these are other potential issues. We, in the community chats, which I'm very appreciative of our partners and our families that are on there, we're starting to really from this telephone user, what are the biggest issues? So then we can start building a parent professional learning, and that we would do some, you know, here's some key things, and potentially in the evenings open up a Zoom. This Zoom's for how to use tips and tricks of Google. This Zoom is let's walk you through the K-12 platform. This Zoom is so how do you get on it, you know, on and off your internet, just to try and help families in a different avenue. So again, that came out very clear in our community meeting last Wednesday. So we were in the midst of building that already, but we're really trying to get it off the ground, which again is separate from tech. Again, it's not easy because I am running out of staff. That's, you know, again, we've got everybody working, but we're trying to find different ways that we might be able to pull some staff to support in what that would look like. So that's one of those, Steve, that we saw from the community chats, that we're really trying to listen to our community and then make that happen as best we can. And I would say know that you may call and we may still not have all the answers, but we're trying to gather those types of surveys to say what are the biggest issues that you continue to have, and then be able to put those platforms. We have a communication out of like what's the best. We put them up on the website, and they're out on our Facebook page about let's look what's the most optimal environment and what might that look like in school. So we've got some flyers that we've built. And And again, very appreciative of the school districts around us because we're sort of been begging and borrowing from each other to really try and continue to build how we make this successful for students and families. So my last, or any other questions about K-12 or the instructional model? So my last really information that I want to share with you this evening is tied to the new All Students Belong Oregon Administrative Rule. This is a rule that was put into place, I believe, 2 Thursdays ago by the Oregon State of Education. This actually came from a young person, actually one of the school districts on the coast, who was very concerned about the hate and discrimination that they were seeing in our Oregon schools. So let me just begin by saying we all believe, and I know that all of our students are entitled to a high quality educational experience, free from discrimination and harassment based on perceived race, color, religion, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, or national origin. We also know that students benefit from a calm, collective, happy environment, which we're trying to build those as best we can right now. But we also know that all students should be free to receive their education without fear of hatred, racism, or violence. We know all of our staff and leaders are entitled to work in an environment that is free of discrimination and harassment, and our visitors that come into our buildings are entitled to participate in that environment without fear or for their safety. We also know that we must, which again is one of our main goals that we've been trying to do since I landed here as the superintendent, but again, we continue, is that we want to make sure that we protect the mental, physical, and social health of all of our students, families, staff, and visitors in our schools. And again, so we want to remove any barriers that interferes with students' well-being, belonging, and the ability to learn. We also know that if a person is treated poorly in the school community, the community is that can be treated poorly, everyone is affected by that. And I'm sure we all have different examples of that. So the presence of hate symbols on the basis of race, color, religion, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, or national origin can cause harm and can significantly disrupt the orderly operations of schools. With that being said, this means that we really are going to begin to actively adopt and implement rules and practices that promote equity. And as I shared with you all, we've done a revamp of our district equity committee. We had our first meeting last Thursday. It was phenomenal. I think we have amazing leaders, both in our administration, our teaching, and our classified staff on that committee. I think we're going to do great work there, and really to promote the well-being of our students. So the Oregon Board of Education has prohibited symbols, specifically 3 symbols that are most recognizable symbols of hate from anything in our school environment. Those 3 are the swastika, the Confederate flag, and the noose. And that rule went into effect, as I said, I believe it was 2 Thursdays ago. So we will be working on building policies and procedures for addressing these types of incidents where the symbols are present. Again, we're going to be following the guidance set forth by the Oregon Department of Education and its partners. Again, these are temporary rules right now. They'll be fully adopted as of January 1, 2021. However, the goal is not to, if such incidents happen, that we're going to remove students from school. Really, we were going to do our best with our administrative team to respond to the incidents by being able to create opportunities for education and conversation, and not to move to disciplinary expulsion. We have already had to deal with this type of incident, and was handled, again, at least from my lens, in conversation with the principal in a very productive way, and being able to work with the family with again, where one of the symbols showed up in one of the classroom environments. We will start to communicate with the community regularly on these policies and practices that are put in place. And again, we're going to be looking for feedback not only from you all, but from our community as we move through this. The District Equity Committee will be taking some of the lead in this with the guidance from ODE to develop that initial policy and what that looks like and practices for Central School District. And again, we're required to have this policy in place by January 1 of 2020. So there is a high probability. Our goal is to have that first draft of that policy so we can have it on the November agenda, because again, I think we're going to need to go through 3 readings, a full first reading, a full second reading, and then we would adopt in the January 2020, January 1st or our January meeting in 2021. And then one of the things I do, we'll put this on our agenda for our October 19th so we can continue to have a conversation from a board level. But again, I just want to make everyone aware that this rule is in effect. We are already having to work through that, and I think we are doing it in a positive way. So I just want to make the board aware that we are moving in this direction with the policy. So I would just, any questions?
So how does the display rule work with educational materials? Because it seems like we need to be able to teach why a swastika is a hate symbol.
Yeah, so if it's part of the curriculum, then that will be, again, then we'll be able to use that. But if it is a t-shirt, if it's in the background, those types of incidents is what we're talking about. But no, if it is part of the curriculum, again, that's part of what we want to be able to do, is to be able to teach history correctly, right? And then I think that that's been one of the big pieces that we're even in our with our history teachers. I think that they're starting to even question that in our curriculums that we have both previously and then what we're working through right now, and how we continue to look at that and make those changes.
Would we normally have a board member on a committee that's working on a potential policy?
Yeah, we can have really no more than, we can have committees that a board member sits on, yes. You can appoint committees to have a board member sit on it. We can have committees with multiple, no more than 2. So you can have 2 members sit on it. I stay away, 4 is a quorum. I don't know that I would want 3 on a committee, but 1 or 2 is not, is something that is acceptable. Again, I think it can allow for a lens that can come back to this body when we have meetings to share and hear the conversations. I think it's helpful. Just also from a staff and community end, that there is really involvement from the board. And I think that people are seeing, especially a couple of you have been on the community committee as well as others.
The reason I raise it is, I think as the board, I don't want to get to the point where next month or the following, where we're getting hit a little bit cold with something that's come from a committee that necessarily hasn't had someone that's had some experience as the board, understanding how we use the policies. I'm not overly concerned about it, but I would recommend we actually have someone from the board. And I don't remember who's on the equity committee.
I have been on joining equity committee, but I didn't get an invite this time. I didn't know if it was Zoom or in person.
No, we've been trying to do Zoom. I will make sure that you're on that invite. Yeah, and I agree with you. Part of it is also, and then we will remind the committee, the board makes decisions about policy. Those recommendations can come from committee members, but yeah, absolutely, Steve. I mean, Peggy has been really integral.
Yeah, I was trying to remember if you were on that committee, so I think it's really important.
And I apologize, I thought you were on that.
Yeah, I had been until.
No, you will be.
And then also me and who was the other board member that was on policy?
Jan.
No.
Jan has, Jan has stepped in to be able to do that.
Okay.
Yes. So yeah, and we believe that what OSBA shared with us, we believe at some point in October, we're going to get a new list of policies to update. So then we will pull that small committee together of really myself, Emily Menser, Peggy, and Jan to be able to just review and then move forward if we need to make significant
And then
changes.
and you had put in the Friday report a draft letter.
To share with the community.
So that was my question. This would go to the community, or
It's an option to potentially be able to give a little bit more detail to our community on what this really means. And again, I think that that was just an example, and we can continue to work collectively if that's something that we would like to do, to come out from both myself and you all, and just being able to
so the
share.
idea is that this would be reviewed by the committee. We would have a board member at the committee meeting, and then you could help kind of think through whether this is something that would have value.
Yep, and I think we can even have that conversation at our PLC as we continue to move down this
Okay.
pathway. But again, I wanted to start the conversation because it is in temporary law. We've already dealt with a couple of issues. And again, I think we are handling it in the best way. I think we'll continue to learn. This is, I think there's going to be conversations about, well, is this freedom of speech? You're seeing more court cases and legislation of, if it's related to hate, then that's a difference in free speech. And so again, I think that's really the two pieces that separate, that we just want to build environments where students feel, when they walk through our doors, they feel safe. All students.
Even the ones that are being jerks.
That's the tricky part, I think, is a lot of this is already covered by law. So what is the policy covering? Now, we'll have to solve it here, but I think that's part of what the committee will have to think through.
Yeah, and we're waiting because OSBA, what we've been told is that there's been conversations between OSBA, which is School Board Association, COSA, which is the Administrative Association, OEA, which is the License Association, and OSEA, which is our classified, that they have been working collectively to give a template model of this policy. So really, I'm waiting. Hopefully, we'll have a review of that policy from OSBA, because again, we're hearing that we're going to have a handful of new policies come our way here this month. So, that will be helpful if that
would be good.
The work's been done, and it's very thought out, and we're doing what's right by our students, and still allowing more free speech, because we want to be able to have students have that, but we also want to make sure that it's done in a positive way, not in any form of hate. And again, I think that's just some of the continued conversation that we'll have.
Jen, when you dealt with these, or whoever dealt with these two people that brought the symbols or whatever, just how did that work on a positive basis?
Yeah, the principal reached out to the family and just shared, here's the new law. It's really only been in place for 2 weeks. It was brought to our attention that this symbol was, and again, because our classrooms are in living rooms and different things, I mean, it's just really an awareness. The conversation was good. The family didn't agree, but really the goal, as I had the conversation with the principal, was, could we get to a solution? So there's of what that might look like. And so they had a couple different solutions of being able to work through that. And the parents said they were going to, think about that. And, I think, parents will make some decisions, and, but we're going to do our best to, like I said, be thoughtful, but also knowing we're trying to build the best safe environments we can for our students. So I think it was handled, again, at least from the follow-up conversation with me after it happened, that family was understanding, but, also shared, and really what I tried to, we tried to get to a solution, which we actually did get to a pretty good solution. So it's, we're gonna have lots of probably good conversations.
I think when when I was teaching school, we had a few of these kind of incidents. And there's different ways to handle them. I could tell you a couple of stories, but I won't bore you with that at this time. But I think parents need to fortify their kids. You know, if somebody calls you a such and such, how are you going to handle it? Because sometimes, I know one case, this was way back when I was in college, the way it was handled was with humor. And I could tell you the story in about 30 seconds if you want it.
Well, and I think, Jerry, I think part of what we're trying to do is be able to have these difficult conversations, but have it be a conversation. We
Yeah.
may not agree, but if
Right.
we can get to a space where kids can be safe and families can, you know, still make those decisions, but know that during school time that, you know, that's not going to be acceptable. I think that we can figure out a way to make it work where all kids are feeling safe.
Yeah, well, I'm all for that. And I think that in history class, for example, I've got a book at home. It's called Giants. I don't know if any of you read it or not. It's the parallel lives of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, who was a black man, lived the same time as Lincoln. And if that book is accurate at all, it shows the evolution of Lincoln's attitude towards black people from when he first started to when he finally got the picture that we're going to do right by these people and we're going to treat them as equals and we're going to treat them with respect and on all this stuff. That wasn't the way he started out, but over time he saw the light that, hey, these people are people just like us and skin color doesn't matter.
And we need to continue those conversations. And,
Yeah.
you know, again, I think that we need to acknowledge that we don't want hatred or any type of hate in our schools. I think that we need to continue to have that conversation about, you know, racism and what that looks like and shows up in our schools. Again, we heard from a handful of students in August, and we are, especially with the equity committee, we're taking some of the things that they shared with us, and we're trying to figure out what does that look like? How do we make that happen? How do we continue to educate and move forward? And again, I think we're gonna, like, you know, this is about growth, right? And how do we continue to learn and grow, and you know, be in conversations where we may not agree, but being able to stay in the conversations and doing it in a positive, appropriate way. And I think that it's possible, whether we agree or disagree. I think it is possible to be able to have those conversations. So thanks for that, Jerry. That, I believe. Yes, the public comments were the theater. I sort of embedded them right into. Yep, I think that is it for me. Yep, thanks, Steve.
Okay, I think I'll go quickly here to wrap us up. So just from a board standpoint, Jen's mentioned it a couple of times, we have a PLC meeting in a couple of weeks on October 19th, and we'll be picking up, I think, this very topic that we've been talking about for the last 15 minutes or so. So that'll be good. And then I don't have any other updates. Anything else from the board in terms of board reports?
I probably should have asked this earlier, but is there anything that we've looked at for the younger, I guess, K-8? Because there's a lunch time where kids get offline and get back on. Do you know the percentage of the students that actually do come back after lunch? Because I feel like,
You're talking K-8?
yeah, that there, it sounds like there's a group that the number goes way down after lunch.
So we are taking, well, I can have, because we are taking attendance, obviously. I have not had Eileen just because we've been working through some K-12 stuff and she's
We
been
can
one of
talk
our
about it
leads.
later too. I'm just
But
curious.
yeah,
the
I can
numbers,
definitely take a look at that and look at attendance after
'cause I
lunch.
keep hearing that from teachers.
Okay.
That,
I think engagement
Yeah.
in general in this
Mhm.
environment is a real challenge.
yeah,
And something we have to keep thinking
Yeah.
and trying to understand how we do
Yeah.
it better, because
yeah. But
it's a
we
good
can talk
point.
about it later.
Yes, no,
Okay.
I will add that and I can add that, have her potentially pull attendance and what that looks like and then
Otherwise,
get you guys a glimpse of what that looks like from building to building.
So that brings us to our consent agenda. We just have the approval of minutes from last month's meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Darcy moved, Jerry seconded. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please raise your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. And that brings us, we don't have a business agenda tonight because we deferred the calendar topic. And that brings us to comments by individual board members.
I have something. I just, once again, I know everyone is, we've all said this, but I just want to thank everyone that is keeping this district whole and all of the hard work that they're doing for our kids. Because that's our why. Our why is our kids. And it just feels good that we're keeping that at the forefront.
Well said. Anybody else?
I just have an offer. I'm signed up for the equity thing on Friday. And I'm not sure I'm going to be able to attend. Does anybody here want my spot? I saw that it was full. I will just unregister myself and let somebody else in the world have it unless there's somebody here that wanted it.
I'm already registered.
I'm registered too.
I couldn't get in. I will take your spot, however we do that.
So you would be interested? Okay.
I was,
Let me confirm that tomorrow. It's a family thing. And if my family's visiting, I probably won't attend. And so I'll confirm.
Yeah,
that with tomorrow.
he's the gentleman that was one of our
Yeah.
opening
Okay,
speakers
yeah.
last year. So
I'll
I
try
think it'll be
not to
really
do
good.
Anybody else? All right. I'm going to go ahead and adjourn us. We are adjourned.